to Wherever Busy You Can Too kitchen. Today I'm going to make a Victoria sandwich. This is a quick and easy. It's not, I learned at school where you had to stand for hours beating the margarine or butter into the sugar and all the rest of it, and it takes forever. This is an all-in-one mix and it is really easy. The only thing I will say is I use an electric whisk, and I would advise, if you have got one, to use an electric whisk. We are going to put a link in the description for one on here, and it does come in under £10. I use mine so much, it really is a worthwhile investment. I'm going to do a chocolate sponge today. The only difference between a chocolate Victoria sandwich and a vanilla Victoria sandwich obviously is the chocolate. You just use cocoa powder, but what you do, say you need 100 grams of flour in your mix, you take out a percentage like 20 grams and replace it with cocoa powder. So you've still got the same quantity of flour in there, but you've got your bit of cocoa powder in there to make it chocolatey. Okay, I've got 8" by 2.5" tins, which I've already greased and lined. You only need to line the bottom. The easiest way to do it is to stand your tin on some greaseproof paper, draw a circle around it in pencil, which is obviously bigger than the inside of the tin. You then cut on the inside of the pencil line so you don't have any pencil in your cake mix, and it fits perfectly inside your cake tins. Grease the tin, put the paper in, grease it again, and obviously grease up the sides. You don't need to line the sides because you can get your knife around those when you've cooked it. Okay, because my tins are slightly larger, I'm going to be using 300 grams. I'm just using margarine today. You can use butter if you want to, and if you're rich. We're not, and margarine works perfectly well. So I want 300 grams. Make sure you get a margarine that you can cook with, because a lot of these low fat spreads are predominantly water and you can't cook with them. They just dissolve into nothing and you won't get a nice cake or, you know, whatever you're doing. It needs to say, this one says on the lid, suitable for baking. So I want 300 grams of margarine. Okay, so I've got 300 grams of margarine in there. That I'm going to add, it's all the same quantities all the way through, so it's 300, 300, 300. So 300 grams of margarine, 300 grams of just ordinary caster sugar. Now, the recipe, because of, again, it's slightly larger, calls for 6 eggs. If, like me, your eggs are all different sizes, I would advise weighing them. So I've got 300 grams of each weight, so I'm looking for 300 grams of eggs. Take them out of the shell into the bowl. I've got my 6 eggs in there. It weighs 305 grams. It's fractionally over, but that's absolutely fine. Now, because I want a really rich sponge, I'm actually also going to add 3 egg yolks to that. Same way as I always do it. Into my hand. Roll it about and just pop it in. Okay, so I've got my 6 eggs and I've got 3 egg yolks in there. I've only added the egg yolks because I like it. It gives it a richer sponge, but if you haven't got that many eggs, you don't have to add the extra eggs, 3 egg yolks. Just the ordinary 6 eggs will be perfectly fine. So I'm going to put that into my bowl. The whole lot goes in. Like I say, this is an all-in-one. It's the dream Victoria sandwich mix. I've zeroed my scales again because sometimes if they get a bit too heavy then they just shut off and I don't want that. So 300 grams of, I've got self-raising flour here. Don't need to whisk it with an electric whisk either because the whisk will beat everything in anyway. Right, as I said, I want 300 grams of flour in here, but because I'm doing a chocolate cake, I've only put 250 grams of self-raising flour. And to that I'm going to add, excuse me, 50 grams of just ordinary cocoa powder. And then I want 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Just ordinary baking powder. available in the bakery aisle. Okay, so that's all of my ingredients. I've got my 300 grams of caster sugar, 300 grams of soft butter or margarine. I've got 6 eggs plus 3 yolks. I've got 300 grams of self-raising flour, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And we're going to see how that goes. If it's a little stiff, a little too stiff, I may add some milk, but we'll find out in a minute. So this is where it gets noisy for a minute. Because obviously it's faster than a hand whisk. So start with the low power and start going slow until you've got the flour and everything incorporated. Then you can speed it up a bit and give it a bit of a whipping. I'm just going to go around the sides of my bowl with a spatula just to loose it up. And now I'm just going to divide this between my 2 tins. Doesn't have to be exact, just, you know, I tend to count my tablespoons in, so I've got a rough go, but as I say, it doesn't need to be exact. Okay, so I've got all my cake mix in my tins. I'm just going to shake them about a bit, just to sort of level it off. Ooh, stick my finger in it as well, because that's just the way I roll. I've had my oven on preheating on gas mark 3, which is 325 degrees Fahrenheit, 170 degrees centigrade, but again that will be in the description for you. And I'm just going to pop my cakes into my oven and leave them to... Oh! Try not to slam the oven door because it doesn't do the cakes any good. Also, don't open the oven door whilst your cakes are cooking because it'll take the heat out and they may well sink. Try and just put them in. They need to be in there for about 20 to 25 minutes. So try and just put them in and leave them. Just trust it. You know, I know it's tempting to keep looking every 2 minutes, but just trust it. So we'll come back to those when they're ready to come out of the oven. Okay, so my cakes are out of the oven. As you see, if I touch them, they spring back, so they're perfectly cooked. I'm not used to this oven yet. One of them's gone a bit lopsided, but that's fine. We can sort that out when we're decorating it. I'm going to leave them in the tin because it gives them a chance to sort of settle down and set a bit. Only needs about 5-10 minutes. They don't have to go completely cold in there. Just, as I say, 5-10 minutes just to leave them set. Whilst that's happening, I'm going to make a chocolate ganache to decorate them with. Chocolate ganache is basically, you know, the chocolate truffles you buy from the special chocolate shops like Thornton's and things like that. The chocolate truffles are made of chocolate ganache, and all it is cream and chocolate. So in my jug I have about 175 ml of just ordinary double cream. I'm just going to heat that up in the microwave quickly. Heated my cream up. Don't let it boil because it splits and goes horrible. You just want it just starting to come to the boil. So I'm pouring that into my bowl. So that was 175 ml of double cream. To that I'm adding 230 grams of dark chocolate. And I'm just going to mix that in. Decided we've got that whisked up and sorted now. That's as you would make the chocolates, but my lovely cameraman's decided that it's not sweet enough because I've used dark chocolate and cream. So I'm going to add a bit more cream, a good glug, and I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of just icing sugar, just to sweeten it up. Just a couple of heaped tablespoons. And back to the whisking. It's ready now. It's sweet enough for his master's voice. I'm just going to whip my cream and then I'm ready to decorate my cake, which is now out of its tins and cooled. Okay, so my cake's cooled, my cream's whipped, my ganache is ready. I've got my cake on a plate, but it's on a turntable. I find it easier to work with these but it's not necessary, but we will put a link in the description again. They're only about £5 or £6 on Amazon, so they're not expensive and they do make life easier. So in the middle of my cake, I'm going to put some fresh cream. This is where you can get away with, if you've got imperfections like I've got a slightly uneven cake, and using the turntables you can get away with smoothing it out by making your cream slightly thicker on one side than the other. And get it right to the edges, because there's nothing worse. The edges of a cake are always dry because obviously they've been next to the tin, and there's nothing worse than biting into the edge of a cake and just getting dry bread, you know, dry cake. It's not pleasant. So try and get it as close to the edge as you can, but try and keep it within the cake because you're going to be putting your ganache on and you don't want the cream dragging through the ganache. And then we'll carefully lift the top on. Now with the ganache, just smooth it over. Right, because my ganache is coming out all coarse like that and I don't want it to, I've got a cup of boiling water here. I'm just going to dip my palette knife in there for a couple of seconds, shake the excess water off, and it just smooths it over. So I've frosted all around my cake and I've got it all nice and smooth. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, it is a homemade cake. I'm just going around the plate because it looks much nicer if it's on a clean plate. And I don't want to try and transfer it off of this one because I'm going to end up in a terrible mess. So I'm just going around and wiping the excess frosting off the side of the plate. And then just as a final flourish, saved a little bit of my dark chocolate and I'm just going to grate that over the top of the cake. Just normal, thin side, small side of the grater. And that's just 1 cube of chocolate. And there we have it, one very chocolatey Victoria sandwich, chocolate cake, whatever you want to call it. Okay guys, so that's about it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching and I hope it'll get you cooking really soon, because you can too. Please, 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 as usual, like the video for us and subscribe to our channel. We've got over 30 videos out there now. If you subscribe, it'll make it easier for you to find the other videos. And touch the bell icon and it'll give you notifications whenever we post more videos. Thank you for watching today. We hope you'll join us again really soon in the You Can Too kitchen. Bye!